Now to the I-24 News exclusive interview with former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Olmert, who came within one final handshake of a peace deal with Mahmoud Abbas a dozen years ago and is now back in the international spotlight for his withering attacks of the Trump peace plan. He sat down with us in New York after his press conference yesterday, once again alongside Mahmoud Abbas, the Palestinian president. Here's what he said.
I want to challenge you and gain some clarity on a few statements you made at your joint press conference with Mahmoud Abbas. You said that he is the only partner for peace. He's the only partner that Israel can enter into for negotiations. But the fact of the matter is they haven't held an election in Ramallah in over a decade, and he certainly doesn't represent the Gaza Strip. Hamas is certainly the sovereign there. So even if he is the only partner, is he legitimate enough that he can actually get something done as the leader of the Palestinian Authority?
Who else? Who else Israel can negotiate with?
But if you negotiate but don't come up with a legitimate answer, then what's the point?
We may come up. The fact is that the entire international community does not recognize anyone else but Abu Mazen as a potential partner. So it's not just, saying, okay, he's not supported by the Hamas. It's true he's not supported by Hamas. They are his enemies. They are the enemies of peace. They are our enemies. They are his enemies. And he's collaborating with Israel in trying to protect us from terrorist activities. And the security services of Israel are very, very supportive of the efforts that Abu Mazen is making in order to prevent terror. So again, the question is very simple. This is not an ideal world. It's not that all the options are open. We just have to pick up the one, everything else will go along, and everything will be all right. He is the president of the Palestinian Authority. Were there proper elections in some of the other countries surrounding us that we are prepared to deal with and negotiate with, and only the Palestinians didn't have elections for 10 years? Let's face it, we have a complex environment. And within that complex environment, the fact is that Abu Mazen is the only person that is accepted by most of the international community. And I think that he's a worthy partner because he is committed to fight against terror. And to do it as a head of the Palestinian state, when you have the Islamic Jihad, when you have Hamas, is not obvious. It requires a certain degree of courage and determination and commitment. So why bypass him and just miss the opportunity to deal with someone that, if someone can speak for most of the Palestinian people, this is him.
You say that he fights terrorism, and there's no doubt there's close coordination, very close coordination between the Israeli security services and Mahmoud Abbas's preventive security services. On the same token, Mahmoud Abbas's government also pays salaries to people who kill Jews inside and outside of the Green Line. How do you reconcile those two things?
There are many things that can be reconciled, and there are many things which are not entirely to our liking. And I'm sure that if someone looks at the situation and looks at us from a different angle than the one that I have as an Israeli and as a patriot of the State of Israel, he can find many different things which ought to be, according to this different point of view, criticized in the way that Israel handles itself and treat its Palestinians and so on and so forth. So there are many contradictions. Still, the question is, who else?
You said you've never heard Prime Minister Netanyahu said it. You've definitely said it, and you made what was considered a very generous offer with almost all of the West Bank, Judea and Samaria, international control over Jerusalem, symbolic number of return of refugees, and 11 years on, at least according to the public, you may know differently, Mahmoud Abbas has yet to answer that offer. Did he ever answer that offer?
No.
Why?
You have to ask him. I don't know. But it's very important to emphasize that even today he said, I never said no, which means that for him, and he said it, he's ready to start negotiations from where we left it 11 years ago. So now you can come and say, okay, thank you very much for suddenly reviving the old story after 11 years. But again, the question is, what is the alternative? Should we then not negotiate at all? Should we then say to him, listen, before you start negotiations, you have to give us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 things that actually we demand from him as a precondition for negotiations?
But isn't that what he's demanded all along, as preconditions for negotiations?
What was his precondition?
Return to the 67 lines, East Jerusalem as the capital.
This is his position, but it is not a precondition for negotiations. This is his position. That's another thing. We may have all our positions, but the question is whether we say to the other side, no, before we start negotiations, you have to accept all our demands. Or you can say, I'm going to negotiate. No preconditions for the resumption of negotiations. There are positions in negotiations. It's a different story.
Do you think President Abbas has just realized that maybe the world and time has passed him by, and the best last offer he got was from then Prime Minister Ehud Olmert, and he's trying to turn back the clock now and start fresh again when in fact time has just passed him by?
Number one, I don't know, maybe.
You don't have those conversations with him?
Listen, I don't have a conversation in which he says, I know that the time has passed by, and now I'm trying to revive the old story and so on and so forth. This is not the way we talk, with all due respect. In spite of the fact that we are very friendly, and I think that there is trust between the two of us, but up to a certain point, he's still the leader of other people, not mine. But I want to say this, look, if you look for excuses why not to renew negotiations, I can provide you with some that you even didn't think about. The question is, what is your state of mind? What do you really want? The way I look at it is, I say the most fundamental interest of Israel that will dictate the future of the Jewish people in the state of Israel is to separate from the Palestinians, to let them have their own state, and to create an environment that will allow very friendly and neighborly relations between us and them. If this is our interest, if this is what we define as our fundamental interest, we have to ignore the difficulties and to thrust forward with passion, with power, with determination, with conviction, and move into negotiations. And we'll see what happens. My desire, I'm just an Israeli citizen with a certain degree of,
You're humble.
No, but look, I'm not in any political party. I'm not a candidate for any political position. I'm not going to be in the framework of, the important positions after the elections. But I think that people listen to me, and that people have a certain degree of, awareness to what I want to share with them. And I'm trying to make use of it for the benefit of the country. So if you ask me now, what do I think is realistically achievable in the near future, is normalcy. To bring Israel back into a normal atmosphere where you can argue, you can disagree, with a degree of tolerance and mutual respect, which have disappeared completely from the political narrative that characterizes the political environment of Israel today. That's not simple, and that's not insignificant. I wish that we will achieve this. From there, we'll move forward.
Mr. Prime Minister, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.